Hello, one and all. Welcome to another episode of Baggers Chat. My name is Mitch Pattinson, and as always, I'm joined by Ethan Duffy, and we are, of course, reviewing the West Coast v Carlton game. 108-point win, absolutely statement win by the Blue Baggers. Of course, the scores were West Coast 6 goals, 8-44 to the Blue Baggers 23-14, 152. So you kind of look at that scoreline and looks like we absolutely dominate, but we probably could have done a little bit more damage if we kicked a little bit more straighter. But first things first, Duffy, how are you?
I'm good, mate. It's a bit of an odd situation. It was a bit of an odd night of footy, wasn't it? With two absolute smashings on a Saturday night. You don't see that very often, but not sure what the scheduling was by the AFL for those two games to be on. But yeah, obviously we're in the preview. We're probably a bit more lenient, going, "I'll take a 40-point win." But yeah, they're realistically, we should be putting them away like we did. They're really struggling and probably the worst team in the competition. If I'm not trying to be mean here, but they're pretty damn woeful, and we've been on the other side of that over the years, which is it's good to give that back to those teams, West Coast and all those other teams that have been giving it to us for years. So no, it's good, and what I was happy about is we kept going. We kept going in the last quarter. Didn't let them didn't let them beat us in the last quarter or. But yeah, 108 points is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I think the last time that's probably happened with, the last time that it has happened with an 100-point win was 2011 against the Gold Coast Suns, and that was of course 119 points, but that was when they were kind of that was their first game, and that was that was against us when we were probably the last time that we were actually half decent. So to see that, and as you just said then, is that we were kind of on the other side of the spectrum about 5-6 years ago when, of course, in 2018, when we lost 5 games by over 100 points, which is unbelievable to think about. But you can kind of it kind of shows the improvement of the side with how we've kind of transitioned from that sort of football to now actually doing it and beating these sides by 100. Like usually, like last year we saw that we beat North Melbourne by, I think it was 50 or something, but now we're actually pushing that to 100 points. Realistically look at that and be like, wow, it's pretty awesome, because that kind of leads into my next question, where does it showcase more how dominant we were as a team, or was it to showcase more about how poor West Coast actually are?
Yeah. It's I guess, like you said, it shows the improvement in the side, but I think their biggest loss, if I'm not wrong, I think their biggest loss was 63. I was just looking at this year, which was to the Demons. A few weeks at Optus Stadium as well. But their other losses haven't been massive. They've been it's 30, 40, and everyone's going, "Oh, but you're versus West Coast, da 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 da." But we beat them by 108. For fuck's sake, Harley Curnow beat them on his own boot. So it's a bit of a mix of both. I think it came at the right time for us, I think, that game. Perfect timing. We were starting to lose our, game plan and the way we played. So hopefully that leads into a good result next weekend against the Lions.
And it is quite funny how quickly the supporters could change their mind with the club. Like last week, everyone was calling for bloody Vossi's head. I know we were both completely behind Vossi and knowing that we can trust his game plan, but there are definitely some people out there who were calling for his head, but then now they would have been like, "Oh, we love Vossi." Unfortunately, you just have to try and stick it out with this club and trust that this club will make the right decisions. But initial thoughts, I guess the only thing that I really have to say is about damn time that we actually played some good, solid football. Of course, that was by far the best game that we've played. Second was probably against Geelong, but I guess a full 4-quarter performance. But the type of football that we played, that was just very attacking. I know that there were a few experts that were talking about the game, and if we were to make those mistakes that we did last night against a better side, that's when they will start to get kind of ahead of the game in a way against the good sides. But at least we're making those mistakes, because if we kick those down the corridor and actually create something, that's when we can start scoring. So it's kind of risk or reward sort of stuff. So initial thoughts, Daffy boy, what do you think about the game?
Completely agree. We were taking on these kicks in the middle of the ground and it opened it up, didn't it? I know we're versing West Coast, but we needed to change something in the way we played. And Jesus, if we used that ball use for one quarter against the Saints, we would have won.
Yeah.
As simple as that, which is frustrating. But yeah, like especially guys like Chera and I thought Akers was superb, and just their ball movement inside, just taking on those kicks, man. Like like they said, a better opponent, if you make those mistakes, it's going to happen. But all teams make mistakes.
Yeah.
If you're willing to take the risk, you'll probably win more games. But yeah, no, it was good to see using the corridor, attacking footy. We were willing to go forward until the last second of the game, which is very un-Carlton of recent times. But it's good to see.
And it actually looked like we were actually after that 100-point win. Like we weren't settled with the 50-point win. We weren't settled with the 75-point win. We were actually striving towards an 100-point demolition against this club who realistically is on the decline, where they should probably start to rebuild. But still, you need to put these sides away, and we well and truly did. So we'll move on to some stats that we kind of saw throughout the game. I think they're the biggest player. That was by far the best player on ground, as you mentioned before, Daffy Boy. But Charlie Curnow, my word, 9 goals, 3, 18 touches. And one thing that I really saw with Charlie that's very Jeremy Cameron-like, so they're very much alike, 16 score involvements off 18 touches. It's pretty unbelievable to think about. And also to touch on Charlie Curnow before I move on to you, Daffy, is just also the reason why Charlie Curnow played so well is I think because of how well Harry Mackay played with his job. Like credit to him, because yes, I think he kicked 2 goals, 2 goals, 3. He didn't necessarily hit the scoreboard, but it was more towards what he did around the ground with the chase down tackles and the moving up the ground to get the ball, to get it into Charlie Curnow, to lower in the eyes, all this stuff. Unrewarded work that people who don't know football too well looks at that and then it's like, oh, it's not a great game. To me, Harry Mackay was one of our best because he was delivering the ball to a guy like Charlie Curnow. So, Daffy, what are your thoughts on Charlie Curnow's game, and of course Harry Mackay also?
Yeah, I think he's probably with Jeremy Cameron the best forward in the competition. I don't think anyone can say anything about him anymore. He's just that type of game you see out of those guys, like Buddy Franklin's and superstar forwards. You know what I mean? Like, I was talking to my family just before about we've had years where we've had fucking Levi Casbolt coming out of the goal square, like, and now we've got a guy who's at the top of his game. He's at the top of his game and he's getting better and better. He was in the zone yesterday. Like this year, he's been in the zone, but specifically yesterday, he was kicking goals, moving on, getting another one. He's just an athlete, and gee, man, the sky's the limit for the guy. And seriously, I think might have said in the predictions, I'm seeing 80 plus, and he's the way him and Jeremy Cameron are going, they're on track for 100.
Yeah,
if they keep going, I know that sounds ridiculous, and the age we're in now, where there's not many goal kickers, kicking 100. But I reckon he'd be 80 plus the way he's going. I think he kicked 64 last year. He's already got 30. So it's fantastic. And what you're saying about Harry is correct. Obviously, it's still a little bit frustrating on the goal finishing. I think he just needs to really work on that. But around the ground, he's fantastic. His ball use is superb for a big fella. There was a few times where he's just lacing out guys. Like this guy's, what is he, 6 foot, fucking 9, 10. Like there's some guys who are 6 foot who can't even hit those targets. So no, credit to Harry, and he's been through a little bit. Being competent in the media a little bit. I think a little bit too much sometimes, but sometimes it is warranted. But he was good. He was good yesterday.
Yeah, and I think with Harry, the reason why he gets so much shit in the media is because he's kind of lived up to that expectation where he won a Coleman 2 years ago. Like people call him shit and stuff, but you can't win a Coleman if you're a shit key forward. So I'm sorry, whether it's biased or not, I reckon Harry Mackay is top 5 key forwards in the comp right now. And of course, and I'm talking about when they're on their game. If Harry Mackay's on his game, he is untouchable. He's like Charlie Curnow. So if we can get both of these guys firing, it's pretty exciting to think about. But you touched on then about how Charlie Curnow has already kicked 30. Jeremy Cameron's already kicked 30 as well, because he just played, of course, the time that we're recording now. Geelong just finished their game against Essendon, and he didn't kick too many either. So he was kind of a little bit more in front of Curnow, and then Charlie kicked a bag this week, and now Jeremy Cameron didn't kick too many. So now it's 30 all for both of them. It's pretty unbelievable because we're at round 7 going to round 8 next week, and they're pretty high scoring scores for the year already, round 7. So I think seriously we could probably get 80 plus, and let's hope we can try and see an 100 goal season. Let's hope it's Charlie and not Cameron, but it will be great. I think it will be great. But we'll move on just quickly onto a few players that I think doesn't get enough recognition. I mean, especially after last night, Charlie Curnow has to get all the hype of the game. But captain's performance, Patrick Cripps. Okay, so he had 33 touches, but not only was he getting 33 touches, he was around the ground. So yes, sometimes he went forward and got some touches, but he was also back. So his offensive half disposals were 51%, and his defensive half disposals were 49%. And he of course went at 73% efficiency. And I just reckon he was absolutely fantastic. 23 contested possessions. So pretty much, I mean, a large percentage of his possessions are contested. It shows why this guy is such a bull. And I'm so glad that he got onto the scoreboard last night. He kicked 1 goal, first goal of the year, which is quite unbelievable to think about. But what did you think of Paddy Cripps' game? Was it a captain's performance? And what did you see last night that you haven't really seen in the first 6 rounds?
Oh yeah, I think I think this year he's been ticking along quite nicely. I think obviously everyone expects him to have these 30 and 3 performances every week like he had last year, but it shows our team's a bit more mature and we're a better team. If you don't notice him every single week, but I definitely did notice him last night in and around the contest, like you said, with his contested ball work, and he just seemed to be enjoying it out there. He's had years of shit, really. And he had patches where he struggled in 2021. He just didn't look like he enjoyed his footy. And I think he obviously got that joy back last year with his performances and team's performances. But last night, and he's kicking the goal, he's having a smile. And I'll tell you what, if anything doesn't, if Cripper smiling doesn't make you happy as a Carlton supporter, I don't know, nothing will, really. But no, he's a leader and he's fantastic. And his ball use last night, really good. Really good going forward. It's a very underrated kind of part of his game. Everyone talks about him being a bull, but there's certain players that are like that, but their outside use isn't very good. But he was superb for mine.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. And so, I mean, we were just about to transition into some players that also didn't really get enough credit, but I think I want to touch on this right now, and it's the importance of Adam Sard and Sam Docherty. So obviously last night we brought in these 2 guys, Sam Docherty, that it was a bit controversial as to how quickly he got back and whether it was a risk. And then also Adam Sard, after a 1-week hamstring injury, it was quite a risk that a lot of supporters, including me, was a little bit worried about. But also to bring these 2 guys in, the importance of these 2 guys is absolutely pretty much our 2 most valuable players out there, in my opinion. In the style that we play. So last night we were seeing a lot more attacking football. These guys are the 2 guys that start that chain. And if you want to try and get these, the ball into both these guys' hands and really start to create stuff, that's how we can really start to get a higher score. And we saw it last night, 152 points scored. Yes, right now the game is probably in good hands where it's a lot more higher scoring, but 152 points. I don't know the last time that we've done that. I know that we spoke about it at the start of the episode that it was 119, that our last 100-point win was 2011, but 152 points as well to add on to that. Absolutely phenomenal. So what do you think of these 2 players? The importance of them? Are you glad to see them back?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with it with your analysis there. I just think, they provide drive out of our back line that we kind of, well, I don't know if we did lack it last weekend, but I think we opted not to create drive from the back line. Obviously, I think Sardi's on the way for another All-Australian jacket this year. I think he's the best probably halfback in the competition. His ball use is superb, and Doc's will to get the ball forward. He's will to get the ball. That guy is just phenomenal. And his recovery, it was a 4 to 6 week MCL, and he recovered in 2 weeks' time. So that just shows you how professional the guy is and how good he is. But yeah, with also with this point with Brody Kemp, he provided a little bit of drive too. He's got good ball use. He's a tall lad, and I think guys like Kempy, I think he will keep playing out the team forever. I think he's almost it's almost starting to the tide's starting to turn if you get what I mean there. But no, it's good to see Sardi and Doc, because like with those pillars at half back, I'm confident to beat any side in the competition.
Yeah, completely spot on. And you think about also our injuries that we kind of saw last year with Jordan Boyd, of course, playing right now in the VFL. I was calling out for Jordan Boyd last week, and I don't think he comes back in. And of course, a guy that we had at the start of the season that was injured, Zach Williams. So we're thinking about towards 2024 with all these guys back, touch wood, all these guys stay fit. Zach Williams coming back into that lineup as well. Sard, Doherty, and Williams all transitioning through that halfback flank with a Kemp, as you just touched on there. Like, I was going to try and touch on all four players once, because these guys simply didn't get enough credit. But Brodie fucking Kemp, he was absolutely fantastic, wasn't he? He had 22 touches and he finished with a goal, his first goal in his AFL career. Absolutely fantastic. So I think with stuff like that, where you kind of see a guy who's being rewarded in the VFL for playing so well finally got in his chance. And yes, it was against a West Coast undermanned side, but he still performed. Like, it doesn't matter. Like there's people who would be saying that, they were just playing against a waffle side and stuff, but it doesn't matter, because you go out there and perform. That's all you ask for. That's all we ask for. That's all Vossi would have been asking for. But to touch on these four players, you mentioned one there about Brodie Kemp, but Nick Newman was almost close to best on ground as well. So 34 touches with one goal, absolutely fantastic. 164 fantasy points, that doesn't really matter, but to look at that, fantastic. Blake Acres, 34 touches as well, one goal. His class around the ground and his football IQ is the reason why we played so well last night. And let's hope this is the start of him consistently performing this well and having these types of stats, because his stats are insane. Absolutely insane with his stats. Adam Chera, the past 2 weeks that he is, mate, this guy, at the start of the season, I said, this guy, Adam Chera, I was like, it probably would have been a little bit of a different one with me saying that he was going to be the best and fairest at the end of the year for Carlton Football Club. But now I'm starting to see why I chose that pick. Because, yes, it was a little bit out there, and I was kind of second-guessing myself as well. But 30 touches with also a goal. Absolutely fantastic. And when he kicked that goal, it was very Chris Judd-like. Very Chris Judd-like to kick that. I was like, we've got Adam Chera, baby. So that was absolutely fantastic. And, of course, to touch on Kemp as well. But out of these all four players, who impressed you the most, and why are these guys so important to our side?
Yeah, they're all crucial parts of the team. Obviously, Kemp, like I touched on before, I simply don't know how he's not been in the team earlier. I think he should have been in for the Adelaide game instead of Plowman. It should have been him for Gov, but we'll move on from that terrible night. But Newey, I say it every week, he's just that guy. He doesn't need to be, highly rated, and he probably doesn't give a shit if people rate him. You know what I mean? Like, that's just what the type of guy he is. Plays off half back, gets in opponents a little bit here and there, which I love, a bit of mongrel. But also his ball use is fantastic, and under pressure, he just unfazed, isn't he? It's just it looks like he's like doesn't even care, but it's, you know what I mean? Like, he's got that like straight face where he's just like he just does his job. Which is in a lot of good teams, they have those types of players where you go, geez, he's had 30. You know what I mean? You go, he's had 30. But yeah, he was superb. Blake Acres. He's in my top 5 favourite players currently at Carlton. The way he's, mate, like the Dockers, what are they doing? What are they doing, mate? The one. I remember reading comments. I think it was after, I don't know which loss it was. It might have been the Adelaide loss or maybe the draw round 1, and all these Dockers fans commenting on things, going, "Oh, hope you enjoy Acres." Da 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 da. But realistically, he's probably the one that got away for him.
Yeah.
Like, give away a future. What do they get? We gave a future 4th, which is basically nothing. And in previous years, they got rid of Ed Langdon on the other wing. They had him and Ed Langdon, for God's sake. Like, they're 2 pretty solid wingers, and now look at them now. They've won 2 games, but Acres is superb. And that run where he kicked from defence, took on 2 West Coast players, handball, got it back from Cripple, went again, got a goal. And his ball use, man, I thought people were saying his ball use was no good. I'm not sure what game they've been watching, but Blakers has been superb. And obviously, Ches, like he said, giving me Juddy vibes, mate. I'll keep a lid on it, but he's giving me Juddy vibes. That number 5 jumper, mate. Jesus Christ, we got him for another 10 years, mate.
Yeah.
that's
just,
the joy.
Yeah.
Oh.
But he's very silky, and yes, of course, we want to try and keep a lid on it. I was also a bit saying, "Oh, this guy's Chris Judd, baby. This guy's Judd." But Adam Chera right now is probably my favorite player at the club. He's silk, and his football IQ. Like you say about a lot of these players, how good their football IQ is. Adam Chera, when he gets a ball, you kind of see that something's going to happen. Not necessarily crafty, like a crafty footballer, but he's more just smart. He sees he can kind of see into the future. So he kind of knows where players are going to go, and that's just coaching. So he's coached well where he knows what's going to happen up forward. He knows what's going to happen around here. His football IQ where, this guy's meant to be here, I'm going to kick it there. That's his football IQ, and that's how you know that he's been coached well. You touch on there about Blake Acres. So I touched on earlier about Patrick Cripps and where he was kind of getting the ball across the ground. So Blake Acres, 62% in the defensive half, and he's 38% in the offensive half. So you can tell that he's getting both ends, but more defensive, a little bit more defensive, which is fantastic. Because what I was seeing, I was kind of really keeping an eye on Blake Acres because last night at playing at Optus Stadium, first time that he's been at Optus Stadium since he's moved, you can tell that he knew the ground so well. And you can just tell that he was just running all around the ground. And he never stops running. Very Sam like where he just does not stop running. So 34 touches, and he touched on there as well, 82% efficiency for a guy that got 34 touches. Yes, there might be a few easy kicks, but you're still converting it with them, and you're still converting to get it moving forward to create something. It's just fantastic to see. So credit to all those guys. Absolutely fantastic. You know that all the hype is going to be about Charlie Curnow this week, but all those guys, pretty much everyone last night played their role, which is absolutely fantastic to see. So we'll move on to one of our last points, which is, of course, the ruckman conversation. So, of course, the VFL was played yesterday. Tom de Koning was playing in the match, of course, and he didn't do too well. A lot of the media hype was saying that he just wasn't doing too well, and maybe that kind of looks towards the contract situation at the end of the year. We don't give a crap about it right now. We just want to focus about the now. My opinion, and I want your thoughts as well, Duffy boy. Mark Bitnet is our number 1 ruckman by a country mile, and I'll tell you why. Past 2 weeks, Mark Bitnet has dominated in the ruck, and last week against St Kilda, the midfielders did dominate. They got so much of the ball. Adam Chera, George Hewitt, Sam Walsh, you name them all, they got so much of the ball. They just simply couldn't do anything with the ball. Last night, we saw a difference where they actually used the ball well and they were effective with their disposals. Pitnet is so important to this side where at the start of the season when he wasn't picked in this side, I couldn't believe it. So I think what has to happen for the next few weeks to kind of see what happens, Mark Pitnet is to be the number 1 ruck, and Lewis Young and Silvani to chip in as our second ruck, while TDK earns his right to be back into the side if he was to come back in. Because I reckon right now, if Pitnet doesn't get injured, touch wood, he needs to be in this side every single week as the number 1 ruckman. So, Duffy, what are your thoughts? Do you see it differently? Or is there anyone else that could potentially come in to be that ruck? What do you think?
No, I agree. I think he's with Pitto, he just has gives midfielders first use every week. He might not win the ruck, like the hit out count, but when he gets his hit outs, he makes it worthwhile. I think, especially last week, I think he had 27 hit outs, but 18 of them were to advantage. So that means it's hitting it to your team, which is pretty high percentage. But I agree. I didn't mind Youngie actually coming into the ruck because I thought we had enough height down there with Kempy and Gov, and you can actually cover that. But yeah, with TDK, I think he's actually out next week with a concussion. So he's had a concussion in the VFL, which is unfortunate for him. But yeah, I think there was a couple of scouts. Well, not scouts, but it was a few club of a certain St Kilda Saints. There, Stephen Silvani, list manager of the Saints, and Ross Lyon were there for the VFL, watching TDK go about it. But that'll be an interesting chat, I think, over the next few months. I think, where does he want to be playing his footy? Because I think realistically, long term, It's tough. Obviously, the Saints are playing good footy as well, but I think long term, I think we'll be a little bit better than them. But will he get a game of the Saints? Will he get a game of Carlton? Like he's not even a lock to get it anywhere. He goes, unless it's a club with no ruck, like no genuine ruckman that he slides straight into. But with the Saints, they've got Ryan Marshall. Do they want to play them both? You look at us. He doesn't really work well with Pitto in terms of he's not good enough forward. So, like I was talking about with Luke Jackson struggling a little bit for Freo, it's like you go, oh, it's nice having two ruckmen, but then it's like you got other forwards there, and it's real tough. But I do like Tommy DeConnie. I want him to stay, but it's just a matter of what type of money he wants at the back end of the year.
Yeah, and I reckon it all really is down to what TDK wants to do. And I think now he's kind of in the privileged position where he kind of gets the right to kind of choose what he wants to do with his career. You kind of know that he will get a contract from us no matter what, but he also will get a hell of a lot of other contracts from other clubs. So it really is down to where if he wants to stay at Carlton, he needs to actually try and work out another sort of strength to add to his bow where he can come back into this side alongside Pitnet. Because I reckon right now Pitnet has improved so much over the past few years. And when we got him from Hawthorn, we weren't really expecting him to be so good, but he has obviously just put he's put his head down and just absolutely worked his ass off to really get into this position where he is probably one of the best ruckmen in the comp. Speaking of, I guess, trying to get his midfielders to their advantage. Like last year, we were speaking about it, how his stats were when he got the taps, he was probably one of the best ruckmen in the comp where he was giving the first chance to the midfielders. And you don't really see much now. Like it doesn't really matter if he is not getting the most hitouts. It's more down to what he does with his hitouts. Very Nick Nat-like. And I think with him, it really is down to where he needs to just continue his growth, but hopefully TDK can come back into this lineup. But if TDK was to come back into this lineup and be alongside Pitnet, what do you need to see from him? I think it obviously has to be his ruck craft, but is it more his marking? Is it more his goal kicking? What do you think you need to see from TDK to make him come back into this side?
Yeah, I think we've seen obviously glimpses of it. Obviously, what is he, 23, 24 now? So, you get to that age. Obviously, big fellas take a little bit of time to develop. I think, obviously there's certain big fellas that just go straight in and they're really good. They're just special players. I thought when Cruiser came in back in 08, I thought he came in and he was in the team straight away. He was kind of a special ruckman. And I wish he could still be playing. What is he, 33? Like he'd be perfect for it right now. But no, I just think, you got to give him a little bit of time, but got to get to a point where it's like, if you're not the number one, what's your role? And like you said, I think he just needs to improve his forward craft. But then, do we need him up forward? I don't really think so. I think AFL's kind of moved away from that, really tall forward line to a smaller forward line. Having a couple key forwards, or because you see with St Kilda, they've got so many different guys up there. A lot of them are small half forwards, or Tim Membry. They might have King when he's back, but they don't have, 3 or 4 talls, you know what I mean? But I think Silvani's good enough up there as well. I thought he was good, actually, last night as well. But it'll be interesting to see if he goes in the ruck. I'd rather probably Youngie, to be honest. But, it's a big year for TDK. Big year.
Yeah, absolutely massive. And you touched on that about Silvani as well. Credit to him, because I was probably one of the guys last week that just needed a response from Silvani. Not good enough with what he dished up last week. And I spoke about how much I love him and how much he would love the club and the team, and he would be heartbroken with the type of football he's playing, and also seeing how his club was going. And you kind of saw last night as I mentioned last week, just a rejuvenation sort of with these players, where if Silvani was to put his head down and actually, I guess just work on a few things in training. You saw that last night, and he played absolutely fantastic. So credit to him. But we'll move on also to the injuries that came out last night. No injuries, which is great. But Adam Sard was subbed off in the fourth quarter, which when I saw that, I'm like, oh no, Duffy boy. But I think it was more of a precaution. I think it was pretty much just to try and get him through the game for the first 3 quarters. You know that we were going to win. and give Matt Kennedy a crack. Of course, he was a sub, and he was playing for a spot in the best 22, and wasn't he fantastic? He made an impact. I think it was 7 touches that he got in that last quarter, kicked a goal, looked really attacking. He showed speed. He showed a lot of speed as well. He actually, he took on the game, and I'm like, I don't know whether that was him being like, yeah, nah, fuck it, I'm going to try and really crack, like really take on the game. But he was absolutely fantastic. So I was really stoked that he played well. What do you think of next week where hopefully if there's no changes next week with injuries, does he come into this side? So early predictions also for next week because we'll do a preview through the week. Does he come into the side? And if so, who comes out?
Yeah, well, it's tough, man. I think we've just got, I think we got our midfield mix kind of wrong in the first kind of 6 weeks. We had too many. We got a little bit excited. All these guys are fit now. And once Walsh came in, we had about 6 or 7 midfielders. And it's like, where do we put him? And he ended up playing a half back, for Christ's sake. So I think it's, maybe Ed Curnow's spot. Maybe I think that's between them two. Personally, I think the other mids are kind of untouchable. Well, they are if they play bad in the next few weeks, but I don't think they will. I think they will lift against sides like Brisbane, which is going to be a massive, massive game. So I don't know. You go Ed or Matt Kennedy. I'm not sure, but I think the importance of Matt Kennedy last night was the sub impact.
Yeah,
I just LOB has had zero. I don't even mean to the bloke. He's had absolutely no impact on the game as sub. Which has been, and we just kept doing it. It's like, I don't know what was going on there, but a little bit of a change up. And like you said, he provided energy straight away in that last quarter, which I think almost urged us on to keep going. You got that fresh legs. Because I think their sub was more of a key back. So with that Rhett Bazzo who came in for FC Seaton, the king. But I think, I think Bam Bam might be in next week or he'll be the sub again. Because it's going to be a massive challenge, different game next weekend because they're looking good, the Lions.
Yeah, completely spot on. And I think one of the names that you touched on there about Ed Curnow potentially coming out if Matt Kennedy was to come into this side, I completely agree. I think it has to be Ed Curnow that comes in. I would be bringing in Kennedy next week no matter what, just because with Ed Curnow, it seems like he's playing more of that half-forward mid-role. I reckon Kennedy fits that role perfectly. Because maybe 3 or 4 years ago when we needed him to kind of, when we were really hyped up about Matt Kennedy, he played that forward role and he was actually quite good. One of the games that comes to mind was, I think it was against Gold Coast when he kicked 4. 29, and he actually... and he, yeah, but he looked fantastic. And me personally, I was saying, this guy's the next Dusty Martin, Daffy boy. I was stoked to see that. And I'm like, Vossi can kind of look back into the past. You don't want to look into the past, but for sometimes you kind of want to see what these players can have produced in the past and say, maybe this guy can play as a half-forward mid. And I reckon that's probably more likely to happen than Ed Curnow. Because I think Ed Curnow is that inside mid, but I think Candy has a little bit more attributes in his game. So to touch on the last segment, best player, Duffy Boy, I think it was pretty obvious that it was Charlie Curnow, but if there is anyone else that you want to quickly mention, what do you think?
Charlie Curnow, 9 goals. 9 goals, mate. I think it's be a disrespect to the King Charles, I think. But we're all good. But like I said, next week's the real test. If we can win next week, it's massive, massive. And we've got a tough month ahead, really tough month ahead. So, big Chucky up forward. Best on.
Yeah, completely spot on. Charlie Curnow for me by country mile, not even a question. Maybe Akers might be second, even Nick Newman, but I think Charlie Curnow has to have the credit. And as you touched on then, our next 4 weeks, so it's of course Brisbane next week. Then the week after we're playing against Western Bulldogs. Week after that we're playing against Collingwood. And then round 11, we are playing against the mighty Sydney Swans at the SCG. So it's a big 4 weeks, They're winnable games for us. We can get this done. We are good enough to beat these sides. We can go 4-0 with the next.
Look at Sydney, man. Sydney Dogs aren't ever really, convincing. I'm not trying to talk on their day, but Sydney is struggling. They're not even in the 8, are they? I think they're 12th. Like, what's going on there? Shout out to Fish, but seriously, they're winnable, but it's we can't fuck this up. This is the biggest period of our season. Massive. If we can't get it done, then we're not good enough.
Yeah. Absolutely spot on. Next 4 weeks, crucial. Of course, we will post an episode throughout the week of our preview against Brisbane. Massive game, Friday night, Marvel Stadium. Make sure to get down to that game, 7:50 on a Friday night. It's going to be a massive game. Daffy, absolute pleasure. And to the viewers, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the channel around. We're so glad that we got the win last week against the Eagles, but now we move on to another game this week against the Brisbane Lions. But as always, Daffy boy, out the baggers.